I'm Jamie from Earthquaker Devices. If you're unfamiliar with our company, we make guitar effect pedals in Akron, Ohio. I own the company with my wife, Julie, over here. I design the pedals. She makes business happen. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary last year as a company and in marriage. Thanks. Trying to think of some other interesting things to tell you about us. We have now, as of today, about 35 employees. We manufacture every single thing in Ohio in our shop. So we do all the circuit board population and assembly and testing and packaging and shipping from our main headquarters. And then we have another building a couple blocks away where we do all of the machining and powder coating and printing of our enclosures. So we have pretty much everything under control, which is something that we worked for a very long time to do. It's harder to do than you might think. But it also makes it so we can do cool things like limited colorways and small runs of pedals and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. I am going to show you some of our newest releases, like all the pedals we've done in the last 2 years. And then answer some questions. If you have any questions, please have some questions. Please, that's what makes it fun. And if you don't want to ask them in front of people, which for some reason most people don't, I am sure I will be smoking cigarettes in the parking lot of this place. I hate to say that. I'm going to play through some stuff for a minute, and then I'll start talking about pedals. And here's a bunch of the pedals.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Still feel real weird. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to start with Gary. That's what I'm going to start talking about. Gary's over here. We can maybe pass Gary around. Pass. Gare Bear. Gary is a pedal I made for Lee from the band Idols. Is everybody familiar with Idols? Great, good, best band. They're all the best band. Every band that we work with, best band. Kind of the backstory of this pedal is we had worked with Lee and Mark. Actually, I think we worked with everybody from Idols for a while. Lee had made us on his own accord this like super awesome video of him taking the special cranker to the beach, which was a cool video. I was like, who is this dude? He took this pedal on a date and shot a video for us without us asking. It's really cool. And then we went and saw him in Cleveland, and within like 5 seconds, I was like, holy shit. Like, this is one of the greatest bands I've ever seen in my life. There are no bands that I think have their kind of energy now where I feel like there used to be. I grew up in like the punk rock world of like house shows and stuff like that, and that's the kind of vibe that you would get at those shows, but it never translates to a big stage. And it was so fucking cool to see something like that. Like, my mind was blown. And he had been using, we made a pedal a while ago called the Gray Channel, which is, if you're familiar with the DoD 250. It's kind of the pedal that started Earthquaker. I had a 70s one that I really liked a lot, and it broke, and I opened it up and fixed it and got stoked on making pedals, and that was sort of the thing.
2 Garys.
Yeah, 2 Garys, double Gary.
3 Garys. 3 Garys.
There's 3 Garys?
Take one.
There's a third one?
Lots of Garys go around.
Larry and Barry. Where was I going with this? Great channel. DoD 250 made. That was essentially 2 DoD 250s in a box with some modifications to it. Lee was using one pretty much the whole time the Idols had been going, or he's been in the band, as his main drive tone. So he had asked me, like, hey, would you make me this pedal that is just the Great Channel minus all the options? It's like, I can, but that might be a boring pedal. I don't really know. And he was like, well, it'll be super useful for me. So I made him one. I brought it to that show, and he was stoked on it. And that's what kind of started this conversation about doing this. I'd pitched the idea of like, can we do a double pedal? Like, one side will just be that, and the other side, like, what other kind of stuff would you like? And he was like, I want a fuzz pedal that sounds broken. It's like, oh, okay. In what way? He's like, you hit the strings and it cuts out. It's like, I don't know. I guess we used to make a lot more weird stuff, but we make a lot of weird stuff. And that's not one of the things that, like, I'm a huge fan of, like, things that sound broken. He had a pedal in mind. I'm not gonna mention it, but I can tell you that it's a company that went out of business about 14 times and is currently back selling pedals, I think exclusively on Reverb. And he was like, can we just make this? And I didn't want to do that, so I took a couple stabs at, like, what else could we do that's interesting? So I came up with what is the right half of Gary. And it's a pulse width modulation fuzz. And what that is it turns the guitar into a square wave, and the pulse width is just, you make it more narrow and it's a real thin sound, or wide and it's a real heavy fuzzy sound. And it is, it's like a super common thing in the world of synthesizers. Like, it's a really cool sound. It's kind of a hard thing to control with guitar. So I put it under control of an envelope, and that's what, like, your picking attack is what controls, like, the pulse width. Alternately, you can plug an expression pedal in, bypass that envelope, and then just use it with an expression pedal. One thing I will tell you is that it sounds really awesome with, like, any kind of voltage control. I use an old Blood Noise expression ramper with it, which I would highly recommend. It sounds super cool. I'm actually surprised I haven't seen any videos with that being used. I actually meant to bring one, and I left it on my desk. So can't show you what I'm talking about, but I will show you this pedal. On the right side, there are two controls. Lee named all these. Actually, I think he told me that Joe, their singer, he just asked him for some advice, and he threw out 4 words, and those became the names of the knobs. The right side, oosh, is volume. Yes controls the sensitivity for the envelope. So this is what, first I'm just going to show you what it sounds like with no pulse width modulation, because I think it's a really good sounding fuzz. That's very quiet for how much gain is going on. So it's like it'll sustain for a really long time, and then it just kind of naturally gates. So as soon as you cut it off, like you don't get that like wall of white noise you would typically get with this much gain. It's the first thing I'm super happy with. So if I adjust this so you can kind of change the pulse width. That's what that sounds like. I really love that sound. I feel like it's a pretty confusing thing for most people to like wrap their head around. Like, how will I use this? Because it sounds somewhat like a phaser, somewhat like a super harsh, like synthy square wave fuzz, and it's like it's not exactly that. Like, it's kind of its own unique thing. One pretty interesting thing about this is once you get this yes control kind of above noon, it does the thing that he was asking, which is like a customer service nightmare for our guy JP when people buy this and like, it's broken. And it's like, it's not broken. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. You get the idea. Specific request from Lee. Pretty specific thing. The other thing I guess I should note too, though, like he uses a lot of like single coil guitars, low output pickups. So I made this thing super sensitive. This guitar actually has humbuckers in it, but that's why there's like such a wide range. Like if you're like a standard output guitar, pretty much from noon back, that's where you're going to find all of the usability for like the dynamics of the envelope that's in Gary. Above that, that's where this kind of stuff happens, where like you hit the strings and everything cuts out. I think it's a pretty sick effect. And then the left side of this is really like, so this amp will distort pretty quickly. This is kind of a good example of like how this works. That's what it does. He really uses like a clean boost just to overdrive his amps. Also going to apologize. usually keep this guitar in drop tuning, and I have been working on something that has been causing me to play all of these like kind of terrible grunge metal riffs for like the last 2 weeks. So my brain is like stuck in that. Keep doing that and hitting gross chords. Yeah, that's Gary. Does anybody have any questions about Gary at all? No.
It's cool. It's fun.
It's cool,
I have a lot
Gary.
of fun with it.
I have a question.
Sure.
That first sound that you made, what kind of music would that be used for? It seems like being a specific, special made, one guy wanted it, he's gonna use it kind of sound.
Which sound?
I think it was the first one.
Like the very first thing I played, or the first sound out of Gary?
First sound right here.
I don't know. Idols? That's probably what it sounds like. I mean, the first sound I played out of Gary is...
I had a different one. It was very warbly.
Warbly. That was probably a combination of... that.
This reminded me of the special you would use for one stroke.
Specialty paintbrush. It could be. All of our pedals are specialty paintbrushes for what I like to hear. What next? Chelsea. We'll talk about Chelsea. Another artist release pedal for the band LCD Soundsystem. Hopefully you're familiar with this band too. Love this band.
You want to hold it or like grab another?
You could pass it around. It'll work. So history behind this pedal. They have a videographer, his name is Vice Cooler, who is friends with Tobin, who is LCD Soundsystem's lead tech. And they have been using the same, I want to say it is a late 70s Big Muff pedal. The model is a version 6, it's a transistor one with a tone bypass. If there are any true nerds in the room, most people associate the tone bypass with an op-amp Big Muff, kind of a different beast. They were totally unaware of what they had. They just really liked it a lot. They've been using it on bass the entire time that they've been a band, taking it on tour, and it was starting to fall apart. So they were looking to find somebody who could like recreate the exact sound of this pedal. Our videographer, through the tech, got in touch with me. And I was like, sure, I would love to take a stab at that because I love the band. I am not necessarily a Big Muff expert. I did do a couple in our line, the Hoof and the Hizimitas for the band Boris. But I don't consider myself an expert because it's actually not a pedal that I have ever really used for any extended period of time. But I end up liking the sound a lot when other people are using it. So that's how we have these pedals in our line. Sent it to me, and it is a bit unique in that like most Big Muffs have like the super mid scoop, super high gain all the time. Theirs had a little bit more of like an overdrive kind of tone to it, especially when you back the sustain off. And I just kind of found this sound that's with the tone bypass like a super interesting sound. Out of this circuit, I guess I should say. just has like an interesting kind of low gain character to it. I think, again, they use this on bass. So I've kind of rarely showed it on bass. To me, it kind of has like, they would use it with the sustain all the way down the tone bypass. It kind of has like the Motown kind of direct bass sound, the way that they use it like that. They're also like a pretty specific band, the way that they mix things. They like to take a lot of low end out of it. It's very like mid-range driven. And this kind of like the second I plugged their pedal in, I was like, oh shit, that's the LCD Soundsystem bass tone. So yeah, I was stoked to work on that. We just put that out about a month ago. Any questions about Chelsea? Yeah, whatever. All right. It does sound good on bass.
We've been doing more artist pedals lately. That's been kind of.
We have been doing so many artist pedals between you and me. Like it's fun, and I feel very fortunate because these bands that we've worked with are like all some of my most favorite bands, and like some of them we weren't friends with before and became very close with during this process. But there's like a common through line, I think. Like all these bands that we work with kind of come from our background, like the 90s punk rock world. And it's nice to work on stuff with people like that who aren't guitar heroes and other bullshit that like everybody is trying to get. And, you know,
I was really surprised you guys didn't do the new Ingve pedal.
I would have loved to too.
I think I could have thought.
If nobody has any questions, I'll tell them my Yingbe story from this past summer at the end. And maybe it's not interesting. I think it is.
Here for it, please.
Yeah, we have. We've been doing a lot. And like I said, like Boris, Sun was the first one. And that was, I didn't know what I was getting myself into with Sun. Like their fan base is like rabid and very like crazy, like varied, like people from all worlds. It's really wild. Very gear centric audience too. So like, you know, that pedal has done so much better than like we ever could have anticipated. I
The first
think.
run sold out like inside that day.
Yeah, like the history of that pedal, like we did, I don't exactly remember. It was supposed to be 1,000 of each color, right? In the first run. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So long ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. Maybe it was like 1,500, 500, and 500, whatever it was. They had these custom sloped enclosures. Yeah, they were gone in like a second. We didn't think that that would be the case. And then we did like another run in like a smaller regular size box, and that one had to be limited to 2,000. It was gone immediately. Now the current one has been in the line permanently and should stay there. You know, that's how I hope everything is. Since like 2000, 2001, something like that, maybe. You'll see, I am the worst with dates. Yeah, I don't know, but
It's always on our top 10.
yeah, it was done very well and like used for like a wide variety of music. I guess the point I was trying to make with that, I got distracted, is that just what Sun does, like I didn't think would translate to so many people. Like I was shocked at how popular that pedal was for us and them. And then yeah, we did the He's Meet Us with Boris, which it's Boris, fucking awesome. Like very lucky to do that. And then these two, you know, it was kind of cool. Like Chelsea and Gary, Idol's LCD Soundsystem, both approached about 2 years apart from each other, and way before they had even met as like bands. And then they did like a tour together while we were wrapping up development of both of these pedals, and then released a song together like 6 months before we put out Gary, and then immediately followed by Chelsea. So it was like, that's just weird how that worked out. I kind of wish that like we had known that was going on and we could have done some cool pairing with the two of them, but yeah, I don't know. They're all like super cool bands. And then we actually have some other ones that I'm like working on now that may or may not come out, but we'll see. Again, like they're all bands that I really like a lot. And it's also been awesome. Like all these bands have approached us. it was kind of a thing that for years I would never be like, yeah, let's do artist pedals. Like I always kind of viewed that. I just had I was stuck in this like mindset of like anti-guitar magazine, like, you know, you see those photos of like Joe Satriani with like a Randall amp and this fucking thing. Like, I'm Joe saying, buy this fucking amp. Like, I just always hated that stuff. But I never perceived that like, oh, we could do this and we could do it different with bands that we really like. Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. But as a designer, it is very, very hard to make stuff for other people. I'll say that. It's been a fun and sometimes totally frustrating learning process for me. But I've enjoyed all of it. What next? Let's talk about our preset series of pedals, because that's what all of the rest of these pedals actually are. I'm going to hold up the ledges. Actually, we could just pass the ledges or one of those pedals around just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. This is a thing that I was trying to hide between me and all 12 of you, that this was a series of pedals. I was like, well, I don't want to call it a series, and then it became like blatantly obvious by like the second one that we did, like, oh, this is a series of pedals. But I had this thought right when we went into lockdown for the pandemic, and I was had moved my office back into the basement of my house where it was for a very long time, and was constantly just playing guitar, working on like playing through all my old effects, being like, you know, I found myself actually having time to play through all my old effects pedals. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And I was like, man, some of these are super awesome. I don't want to just clone them. Like, what if I like tried to make like some series of pedals that combined all these elements of these effects that I really like a lot, and, you know, make them super user friendly, but maybe try to bring them into the future or my idea of the future. And that is how this kind of platform or this preset series came out. What it is like there's a series of effects. There's like an envelope filter, a chorus pedal, a delay, a reverb, and then the time shadows, which is its own weird thing. And they all just have three really simple controls, and then this method of saving and recalling presets that, to me, feels very intuitive and very analog, where like I just feel like a lot of the ways that people tackle presets is very menu divey, or you got to break out a manual and you got to learn all these steps and do all the shit that I just don't do as a player. I always found that it subtracted from spending time making music, and instead you're doing math, trying to learn MIDI messages and shit like that, and menu dive and remember all 7,000 of your presets. Like, I was trying to do something that incorporated some of this usability but felt analog in its use. So I came up with this simple little pot. You put controls where you like them, you hold the save switch down, it flashes, and everything is saved in whatever slot. You get 6 presets. That's enough. You'll remember what all 6 are. I kind of like hinted at doing this idea with an earlier pedal, the Astral Destiny, where you get 2 more presets, but it kind of landed here, which I really like this a lot. There's 2 ways to recall the preset. Once you've saved it, you just tap that switch, and then when this lights up red, you're in a preset mode. When you tap it again and it's green, you're in the live mode, so the controls function exactly how they are. The other way is, once the pedal is on, you can hold down this bypass switch for 2 seconds, and it will switch to wherever this preset control is. I think it's very simple. Some people get confused by it, but it's a pretty simple way of tackling presets, I think, and making it feel pretty analog. So first one we released on this was the realest. But it was not the first one I worked on. The first one I worked on was the Silos. So I'm going to show you that first. There's 3 modes in it: digital, analog, and tape. Digital delay. I'm a big fan of like the Boss DD6 as a digital delay, but I found a lot of times, like, I really like it's almost like a looper in a way. It's like so clean and so repetitive. But I would find that like the high end would kind of get in the way if the repeats are like up high and like they're not decaying correctly. My idea of correctly. So the goal here was like make these first few repeats like really strong and clear, like as hi-fi as it could, but then they will kind of gradually fade to the background. And so they're not like degrading in quality, they're just kind of fading in level into the back. The next one is analog delay, which I have, it's actually the first pedal I paid money for, which was a KMD analog delay, which is sort of like a Boss DM2, right? That's what those are? Yeah, they're purple analog delay, but it has a tone control. And one really bizarre feature of this pedal is the tone control is always active, like even when it's in bypass. None of the other controls are, but the tone control is, which I used that pedal for 10 years in a band. And sometimes we'd show up to shows, I'd be like, why the hell does my amp sound so different? I never even noticed that whole time. Like the tone control is always working.
What year is that pedal?
I want to say the 80s. Like I looked it up once. I remember it was like 82, 83, something like that. But it's from the time where like all analog delays were essentially the same pedal. This was their difference in it. But it has like a really cool sound, like a really nice, like mid-rangey, kind of dark tone to it. And it's still one of my favorite analog delays. So like this was kind of modeled after. Thing I really liked about it, I would always use it with like, it had maximum delay time of like 300 milliseconds. What I really liked about it is that it would just kind of sound like reverb, like as it was building up, like with a really short delay setting. So if you kind of played through it, it was kind of sound like reverb. Or you play against it, you kind of get those cool like accents going. And then this last mode is called tape delay. But what it really is like a combination of the things that I really liked about my Roland Space Echo, and then I have the EP3 and EP4 tape echoes, and then these two sort of faulty Telray Add an Echo and Telray organ tone. They're like supposed to be oil can delays. They kind of sound like reverb. They kind of sound like chorus. But there's something about them that's just really nice. I think like, who is it? Old Blood Noise has the Black Fountain, which I think is based on a similar kind of effect. Just a real murky, kind of dark delay. I kind of took a little bit of characteristics that I liked from all of those and tried to incorporate them into this. That's the silos. That's the first one that I worked on with that. I will show you one more, Time Shadows, because I'm stoked on this pedal. There's one over here in an anagram. This is a collaboration with Death by Audio, which I love. I will try not to gush about them, but I always do every time we talk. I love everything about them. Their graphics are awesome. Ollie and Heather and Noah, everybody who works there are fucking great people. Again, kind of from our same world. Did I say that their pedals all have awesome graphics? They also like beat us all to using the best knobs. Like everything about it. I love their aesthetics and everything. Super cool people to work with. But we had done this pedal for the the Reverb movie about pedals called The Pedal Movie. It makes me giggle. They asked us to partner with a much larger company, and I was like, I don't want to do that, but I would love to partner with Death by Audio. And they're like, great. Brought it up to Ollie. This is my favorite of all their pedals. The Apocalypse. This is the best looking pedal that anybody has or ever will release, I think. Quote me on it. It looks so good. Like everything about it. I think you can see this in some video that we made, but I made a pedal that never came out called the Tone Decoder. It was a time where I did this a couple times, really cool shit where like you order all the parts to build a run of pedals, and then at the last minute I'm like, no, let's not do that. And I did that with a pedal called Tone Decoder. And the reason why is because after we had gotten all the stuff and made all the enclosures, I realized that it looked exactly like this pedal. And there's nothing I could do about it. So we just didn't put it out at all. Anyway, highly influential to me, Death by Audio. Love everything about them. Anyway, we did this. I asked to partner with them. We did. I had been working, again, this was during the pandemic, so I'd been working on like a bunch of ideas for like delay-based guitar synthesizers. And my favorite one ended up as being the EQD side in the original Time Shadows. And then Ollie, without hearing mine, had worked on the pedal's digital. He had worked on a program, and it complemented it like perfectly. Like we had no idea what we were each working on, but like they really work well together. So what my side is, So the original one was limited to 1,000. It was like a special edition thing for Reverb. I think Chase Bliss and Zvex did the Bliss Factory, and then there's another one too, maybe a couple more. I can't remember. And they sold out pretty quickly. And then we were getting a lot of emails for them. They're kind of going a little bit crazy on the used market. And then we came up with this platform. It was like, oh, this is perfect to kind of put this pedal on this like preset platform series. So it seemed like perfect idea. Ended up doing it. One weird thing is, in the first version of this pedal, it only had 2 programs, EQD, Death by Audio. Somebody figured out that if you force the little toggle switch that selects those 2 programs in the middle, that there was a third program in there, and it was this like kind of pitch shift delay type thing. Wasn't supposed to be there. We had programmed all the EPROMs for this in-house because it was such a small run. We didn't get them done at the factory. That I gave them in production EPROM that had a program that I was working on but wasn't finished. So that's what ended up in there. So for this new version, I finished the program, and it's the thing in the middle that is 2 exclamation points that we couldn't come up with a better name for other than let's put this in there. So I'll show you the original EQD side. To my ears, very symphonic sounding. It's type thing. It's hard to explain what is happening in here because it's like a sound that can't be created by a bunch of individual effects, but there's it's like a low pass filter, it's a sub-octave fuzz with a low pass filter and a VCA that are being controlled by the same envelope with like different attack and decay times. So you get these really cool kind of like gated, simultaneously like gated and swelling type effects, but the tails of the delay are not gated in any way, so that will just keep echoing when you stop playing. On the DBA side, I never do it justice in explaining what is happening, and Ollie is super good at it, but it's some combination of just a standard delay and a flange type effect. And this one is really cool to kind of manipulate the filter control with. To me, almost sounds like steel drums at times. Middle program. It has a sound. It does a thing. You're wearing headphones now, but this is most certainly that paintbrush. Almost sounds like cats as it's climbing. I love shit like that. I know that it's not for everybody, but I think it's cool. This is a super cool effect with like a drum machine because like what it will do to like the kick drum sound versus the hi-hat is like totally crazy. I mean, I don't know a better way to explain it. Totally crazy, right? Did I sell you on it? It's super cool. I feel like it has a lot more, like this program in particular has a lot better uses for like more alternative instruments than just a guitar. I think that's all I was going to say about time shadows. Anybody got questions about time shadows or the weather? Trees? Jazz space. Yeah, Ollie did an awesome job. Like some people are just fucking geniuses, and they can seem crazy, I think, to other people. But like working with Ollie was like a serious eye opener, which I would be like, like if we name a pedal, we'll debate it for a month or something, or like ask a bunch of people like what, and then have to choose from all this stuff. Like if we don't have anything immediately when the design is done. But like with Ollie, I was like, hey, Ollie, do you got any ideas for a name? He's like, oh, yeah, man. And like an hour later, sent 25 of the best pedal names I have ever seen in my life. It's like, all right, god damn. Then was like, hey, do you want to do the art? Because I love your art. And he's like, sure. And like 45 minutes later, it's like, here's some, it's like, Jesus Christ. Like, it'll take me like a month. Like just to like kind of move stuff around and be like, I think so. But yeah, just awesome. Like genius, dude. Super creative. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, anybody? Any other questions?
Do you have any artists that you may or may not work with that did something with your pedal that just blew your mind? You're like, I didn't even know this was possible.
I feel like I see that kind of stuff a lot. The most notable one, this happened a long time ago, and now I just do it all the time, is the Rainbow Machine. Anyone's familiar with that pedal?
He keeps walking up here with it because it's his favorite pedal, and he's been talking about it for days. He's like, I want to hear all about it. And he keeps walking up here and sitting with it.
I had it. I love that pedal.
This pedal, thank you. Been around for quite some time. Tell you just to keep talking. The backstory on this pedal, I think I made it in 2009 on a breadboard when I was still in the basement. And I didn't know what to do with it because at that time, it's kind of hard to imagine a time when there wasn't 1 million guitar pedals in the world and each one was weirder than the next one, but that was not the case back then. So this was like an outlier where I was like, I don't know what people will think about that. So I just kept it on this breadboard and I would take it out and I would show it to people when they would come by. And they'd be like, that's awesome, but what is anybody gonna do with that thing? And I was like, I don't know, but maybe we should find out. And we put it out and like, it's done very well for us and continues to do well. The thing that people showed me with it is if you set this pitch just kind of slightly off center, it makes a super awesome chorus, like a really nice chorus sound that's like, kind of like what the old ADT, like automatic double tracking effect does, because it is what's happening, but like if it's like slightly detuned, like you get that kind of like chorusing sound. And then you can use the magic control to like either make that climb or dive in a very controllable way. And that was like one of those things where I was like, oh, how did I never come across this sound with like playing with this? It seems like a no-brainer. Put the pitch in the middle and just do this thing. But ended up I use this pedal all the time and I use it specifically for that. It's kind of one of those things. That is a good question, though, because I'm stumped in some ways. Like, I will see people do stuff sometimes where I'm like, how the hell are you getting those sounds? And, like, just be surprised at, like, what combination it is. Or it's just something about the way their guitar is set up and the amp that they're using, the way they interact together with it, like, only they can repeat. I feel like the band Idols is, like, a great example of that because they are very much a guitar-centric rock band. But the guitars are never doing anything that a music theory guitarist would be like geniuses. They would be like idiots. But they're the best at like they are making sounds that nobody else is making. Like that makes them the best as far as like it's something unique and super cool. And they're doing stuff like that all the time with pedals where it's just like one note played a certain way through a certain combination of effects where you're like, what is that sound like that's coming out? But it's like, you're just doing cool shit with it. Like, I feel like I just said that like a total moron. I hope you know what I mean.
Next question.
Great question. Like, what was your background in like electronics before?
Nothing.
You did Earthquake.
Nothing really.
That's a lot of people I know in pedals are like, I didn't.
Yeah, it's a world of, I don't know what you call it. It's like people, there's like a wealth of information about learning electronics specifically for guitar effects on the internet that like, I've never gone to look, but can you go to like a Reddit, like a subreddit where there's like a bunch of people talking about their like boutique dishwashers or something like microwaves that people are making in their garage. Like, I don't know. It's like a weird, like it's a very specific world that exists. And like, I feel very fortunate to have found it because it kind of combined a lot of the stuff that I really like a lot. I was a touring musician for years. I thought I would just play guitar in obscure punk bands for the rest of my life. And then I went to school for graphic design. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And it just sort of combined, but I've always been like really curious about how stuff works. Like as a child, I took apart everything in my grandparents' house and then rarely ever got to put it together, including like an old car that they had in their backyard. Like that was my thing. I love taking stuff apart, seeing how it works. So it just kind of combined everything, and I don't know, something about it clicked with the electronics. I don't know everything, but I do think I've been able to make some cool pedals with it, at least stuff that I think is cool. But I'm still learning. I will say, like in the early days of Earthquaker, that aspect of it was the least interesting thing to me. It was more like, how do I get cool sounds? How do I make it look cool? Not like, how does this work? What's Ohm's law? What's all of this stuff? But like in more recent years, like that's the stuff that I'm finding super interesting. Like the like kind of industrial design of pedals, and like just the basics of electronic design and how to make stuff just sound good and like full and really natural, especially like as things are heading more and more towards digital, which, you know, digital used to be a negative word in the world of guitar effects until Strymon came out with all the white papers that made people feel safe about it. But it has advanced to a point where like, it's great. Like it sounds really cool. You can do a lot. You can make stuff sound really natural and analog and old, and you can do like really futuristic and interesting stuff with it. So it's like a great time for this. But, you know, when things start to lean too heavily in that area, I feel like it loses some natural piece of the sound. Like there are guitar players now who have never plugged their guitar into an amplifier. There are people who have never heard music outside of like AirPods. Like that's fucking crazy. Like if you grow up thinking like that sounds good, yeah, it sounds good. It does, because it doesn't sound bad. But I'm an old person, and a record is always going to sound better to me. An amplifier is always going to sound fuller. So I'm kind of like an advocate of like, how do you marry these two like new and old things together in a way that doesn't sound sterile and is still kind of unpredictable. And that kind of stuff has been like super interesting to me lately. Just like making analog circuits that sound really good, incorporating it with like some kind of lo-fi digital kind of technology. Yeah. I don't know, it's like rambling on that shit. But,
Is Earthquaker because Akron Quaker Oats? Is that?
no, I wish.
I've never known where it came from, and I didn't know that. And then one time we were there, and I was like, "Wait, this is where Quaker Oats comes from." Is this like
Yeah.
down in Akron?
Yeah. No, it's not. The name Earthquaker came from my old band, which is called the Party of Helicopters, used to tour with this band called Minus Tide from West Virginia. And a couple of those guys were like, we should start a heavy metal band together, because we were all like ex-metalheads trying to play in punk bands and not sound like metal bands. But then we just all sounded like metal bands, which is still a problem I have to this day. No matter how hard I try, everything just ends up being metal. They were like, let's call it Earthquaker. And I was like, that is a terrible name. Awesome, let's do it. And then around the same time as when I started fucking with the pedals, and I just called early on, they were called Earthquaker Device. And then I just added an S and kind of went with that. Our company was started with zero business plan and no intention of having a company at all. So it was an accident.
Just in one that went the same way.
Yeah, it was like just an accident. And had I known, probably wouldn't have called it Earthquaker Devices. I've grown to like the name a lot. But when you're trying to give like the customer service rep from American Express your email address, and they're like Earthquaker, and you have to sit there for 20 minutes trying to spell it out, and they're talking over you. You're like, that's the worst email address ever.
BS Music Shop is mine.
BS Music.
It's good. It's so bad.
That is good. Are you ever like BS, like bullshit music shop? Do you get to clarify it that way? Because I cannot actually come up with something for like Earthquaker, and then there's no, But go ahead.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of specific amp setup in mind when you're designing and prototyping pedals? Like maybe have multiple like Fender style or something like that?
Yeah, actually, Fender style is like that's like how I hear it, like in my mind, like that like slight mid scoop and like a little bit too much low end is like my ideal like bass tone. For years, I recently, well, maybe I should say I recently started becoming open about this. But for years, I used deluxe reverb, and this deluxe reverb was set in a corner in a way where it was like a bass trap, and it had just the best sound. It was like this super bass heavy but really clear, and I used the same Nash Telecaster, which was like an odd combination for me, but like it was like a tone that I knew. So like anything that I made, I knew like if it sounds this way with this stuff, I guarantee it's going to sound good with this other stuff. But I also have like a big collection of guitars and amps that I could pull from and take stuff around. At some point, as we started growing and running out of space, that sounds like tortoise. It's like a tortoise ringtone. Yeah.
No.
What was I going for? Is everything okay?
No.
No sounds. That sounds like a terrible conversation. I started to, as we started growing and like running out of space and like people are like working all around me, I had to start using headphones during development. So I use a Kemper set straight to the out of the box deluxe reverb setting with all controls at noon. It doesn't sound like my amp, but it actually sounds like really flat in a way that I understand. One thing I find with this that I have to compensate for is the Kemper models in a different way, and I don't really know much about impulse response modeling at all, but it models in a different way than a lot of other ones do, and they kind of mute the high end a little bit, so I will have to take this around to a lot more amplifiers and be like, okay, got to tame the high end on this circuit a lot because I'll fight to put more in because the amp is naturally dark. And now I'm starting to learn that amp. And then I use this guitar all the time for everything. But I am a firm believer that everybody should be playing through a minimum of 8 speakers at all times. Yeah. And that's like my ideal sound is just like loud and full. Personal preference, but you know, I do make sure that like everything sounds as good as it possibly can across all things. There are some stuff though that I feel like that, you know, it doesn't necessarily like if I like some of these pedals like the Gary and the Chelsea have like, and especially time channels have a lot of like sub frequency low end. But like this amp doesn't push it at all. So it's like it'll open up. I kind of like that kind of stuff too, though, where it's like, it might be so-so in this setting, but then you take it over here to this amp and this guitar, and you're like, oh, God, that's awesome. I kind of like that discovery of stuff.
What like you do Earthquaker Day? Because you guys are like one of the only people that really do like your own, like, you open up and welcome other companies. You do like I had to convince like some companies. I was like, you should go. They're like, it's weird. We're another pedal company. I'm like, like it's really cool how you guys do that.
Before we get into this, I'm gonna let Julie explain Earthquaker Day. That is that was a thing that I feel like when Earthquaker like first started going to NAMM and stuff like that, and we go around and talk to other pedal companies. Like people were really weird. Like companies shouldn't be friends or like associate with each other, and like that's silly. Like we're all doing the same thing, like we should be doing it together. Like it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, we get a lot of other companies and more every year like coming and, you know, having booths like you guys were there. Cusack is there, Reverend comes all the time, like Make Noise, like all a bunch of companies. But Julie is the creator of Earthquaker Day.
It's basically like when we moved into we've been there 10 years now, but we moved into our headquarters. We had this big parking lot and a grassy area next to us, and I was like, we should have a little like music festival, customer appreciation day. We're also not typically open to the public. And so I wanted to have a day that we could have everybody's like moms come through and show them what everybody does, things like that. And it's kind of just evolved over the years into what it is now, which is really fun.
Yeah, because we used to have like art vendors and you know, all kinds of things.
And we always want it to be like free for, you know, people to come attend, and we give away a ton of prizes. And yeah, it's really like a community customer appreciation day and getting a bunch of people together. And yeah, it's funny because there's not a lot of like tourism draw to Akron, but I know people come from all over.
Yeah. There's not a lot of tourism draw to Akron, but we happen to have planned Earthquaker Day on the same day as the other weird big event that people come to Akron for, which is the Football Hall of Fame. It's Canton, just south of us, but all the hotels get booked
Hall
up.
of Fame induction weekend or something like that. Yeah. It's always the first Saturday of August too. Oh wow.
The first time we ever went, we couldn't get a hotel, we stayed at the worst hotel I've ever
Oh
stayed
no,
in my
not that
life.
red roof. Oh god.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories that shouldn't tell what I picked it for you.
Yeah.
I saw a lot
You know,
in a
that's
very
the
small
thing.
amount of time there.
yeah.
Oh, this is a deal on a hotel room. There's a reason it's so cheap. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
It was great. It was great. It was all part of the experience.
Yeah, we had some people in from Japan last year who got an Airbnb in Akron because it was affordable without really consulting with us, and they had to flee it in the middle of the night. There's some, yeah, it's like anywhere else. There's some bad areas.
Yeah.
You never know what you're getting into, but
I do think what you're saying though, like I remember going to the NAMM show for a long time and everyone felt like they had the adversaries, and it's been really nice in the last like 15, 20 years to watch it like evolve. For like a lot of my friends all work for other companies that are quote unquote competitors, and
yeah.
it feels like a lot more like go out peers and friendship circles.
Yeah, it does.
Pedals did a lot of that. There's a lot of
It is. I mean, I think that we were pretty instrumental in doing that kind of like early on, like getting people together. Like, again, this is another Julie thing with like the pedal parties and stuff like that at NAMM. Like, you know, prior to doing that kind of stuff, everyone just kind of stayed in their own world. And like, I think the first time I went to NAMM, Anaheim NAMM and Cattle and Bread were there, and they were like, there weren't many other like boutique companies at NAMM at that time. And there weren't very many to begin with, but it's like ZVEX were there, and I actually knew Andy, who passed away, and then I had talked with Howard and Nick, who also passed away from Callum. Callum Rose, a totally different company back then. You know, met them for the first time at NAMM, and like Nick had very specifically been like, "Why are you interested in us?" It's like, well, we're doing the same things. Like we talk online. And he's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And then we were just like friends. So like our crew would hang out with their crew. And then next year, like Empress were there, I remember. And then, you know, I don't know. It's just kind of it's like one of those things where it's like I watched it grow. I felt like we were like in the center of all of that stuff. And now like you go to NAMM and everyone's hanging out with everybody everywhere all the time. Like it's awesome. Like even like huge companies are still like Fender and shit like are coming to these things. Like one of the last pedal parties that we did at NAMM, like the president of Boss was there. It's like, all right, well, cool. You know, like everyone's involved. It was fun. It's a weird industry, unlike others, I think. Yep.
You remember the first time you put a pedal together? I just did this is my thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was that DoD 250. Like I had repaired it and was stoked on that, and then like built a copy of that like off of this General Guitar Gadgets website. Like, I had like etched the circuit board and did all that stuff. It was like so much of it was so fun to me at the time, and then like because I had the experience of growing Earthquaker through all of that, now that registers in my head as like total nightmare. But at the time, it was so exciting and fun to like etch it with the ferric chloride acid and ruin our toilet and, just get carpal tunnel from drilling 1,000 little holes and soldering all that stuff. And then like doing mods to that circuit and like that pedal, the pedal that I made like still exists. This guy, an old friend of mine, Matt Miner, has it. It's called the Double Burning Overdrive. It's 2 guys tied to a stake and a pit of fire on it.
Very metal.
Very, very, but it doesn't look metal. It's very sunny, white, bright colors. Anyway, yeah, that was it. And then like the one thing I will say this was like the next thing I worked on was like a fuzz bass circuit, and like followed the trajectory of guitar pedals over the last 20 years. There's 1 billion fuzz basses. I love that circuit as a building block. If there was one pedal that I wish that I had invented, it would be like the tone bender fuzz bass style fuzz circuit. I love it so much, and I think that there's so much you could do with it. Building one of those, which was probably my 40th attempt, that actually worked and sounded really good. There's so few parts in that circuit, it's really easy to screw up. If one thing is off, it's not going to sound like how you think it's going to sound. But that is the thing that got me stoked. And every time that I get like burned out on developing pedals, I just go back to that. It's the same time of year every year. My winter, like December or January, is spent like, I'm just going to fuck with fuzz basses for a couple months and see what happens. And then I kind of get excited about designing pedals all over again from that. And then, we've put out quite a number of pedals from that thing. I think the most recent one was Zor, fuzz bass inspired circuit that I don't think sounds really like a fuzz bass at all. Or like Eruptor is another one that we did, and Spires, and Dirt Transmitter is the earliest one. That's like, and again, still like the fuzz bass circuit is still a circuit that like you change one transistor in it, you're like, oh, cool. Like it'll, if they're like nice enough parts, I guess, like I find something that I enjoy.
What was the story of like the Black Ash? How that thing was like, you made that one time out of like vintage parts, right?
Yeah, I had like a bunch of these. I bought a bunch of these like Russian paper and oil capacitors. Like if you open that pedal up, it's the big green pill looking things that are in there. And we had like a finite amount of them, but there is something like I'm not like a person who's like super precious about parts. Like I won't be like, no, it has to be this thing.
Magic diode.
Yeah, like any of that kind of stuff. In fact, I did this like lecture at a guitar thing in Tokyo one time where like, because they're crazy about that stuff over there. Like there's like walls of tone caps and I love it. Like it's cool that they're so into this kind of stuff there. But they're like so hung up on it. And I did this thing where like I built the same circuit out of new old stock parts that people would consider cheap, brand new parts, like super expensive parts, and was like, I'm gonna blindly play through these. You tell me which one is the nice one, and like the best sounding one was the one that had the parts that you could buy for like $1, like the cheapest parts. And the worst sounding one is the one that had like two $20 caps in it. So it was like, it's just interesting shit to me. There was some magic to this combination of these caps and these specific transistors for the Black Ash. It was like based on a tone bender circuit, like the tone bender Mach 2, which to me, like this circuit's never really sounded good with silicon transistors. Like the transistors are too high gain. Like the way they clip is like a little bit too harsh. But I had these like super low gain transistors, a bunch of them. I really liked the way that they sounded. And then I had, just trying to remember this. I think I ended up having to find modern equivalents to those transistors for the Black Ash. I can't quite remember, but these caps, for some reason, like really made the circuit like, and I think it's just, I mean, part of like a paper and oil cap is gonna be like a little bit darker than like a metal film cap. Just a little, not so much that you're going to be like massive difference, but just enough. And then also the polystyrene caps that were used in the tone, I think do have like a magical property to them. Like it's kind of, they roll off high end in a really nice way where it just kind of has like more mid focus and it's like kind of a softer tone. This combination I thought just sounded really good. It was like, it made this like silicon based tone bender kind of circuit that to me sounded pretty convincingly like germanium, like had the characteristics I liked about it. But we could only make a finite amount because we only had those those caps. Didn't think anything of it. Did not think like, oh, people are gonna love this thing. I don't know. Maybe it was that time, like something about that time in history. I'm not sure, but it sold so quick. And then for like
Fighting over the
for months, our phone was ringing. Which this is not a thing in pedal companies. Like people don't call them all the time. Like, hey, are you gonna? But people were. It's like people asking, like, can we get more? Can we get more? Can we get more? We just never did. And then last year we did. We had enough parts left over to do 200 more, and we did them for Japan for this around this pedal summit thing that we do there. And 50 of those were given to this company that makes really cool pedals called Cult, and they did a mod to them that added a bias control, and like all that stuff sold so quickly, which is surprising. I would love to do something with that circuit again, but with easy to get parts. And I thought it would be a little bit easier than it has been. Like to be fair, I haven't like devoted a ton of time to like thinking about this because I kind of want to do other stuff than distortion pedals. So we've done a lot in the last couple of years, but it is a circuit that I really like the way it sounds, and I would like to be able to like make it not cost $600 and be able to keep it in production with modern parts. So trying to get the same sound off of, like we do pretty much all surface mount production now in-house, which is its own can of worms. Like it's super precise. It's a great, it's great if you want everything to be perfect and sound exactly like repeatable, which we do. You want to know where you're getting. And that was kind of like the fun part about the Black Ash and doing stuff with using new old stock parts. Each one's like slightly different. So it's like, how do we kind of create that same magic with modern parts? It's been harder than I thought it would be, honestly.
I have no questions, but
Sure.
When you guys did that Plumes where you did like the cast, that thing where people make the enclosures out of like, was that when you went to Japan? Is that like, are those cases made in Japan?
Yeah.
I've seen that. That stuff is so cool.
They are at what's the Oitomi is the name of the company.
Yeah, that foundry has been open for like 400 years. Or wait, no, that one just since like the 1850s.
That's it.
It's been a company for 400 years.
Brand new.
Yeah.
$100.
9th generation of the same family is like running it now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, actually Keijiro, who owns KGR Harmony, he'll be at Earthquaker Day again this year. But yeah, if you guys don't know what Brian's talking about, we did a limited run of Plumes and Blooms that were in cast iron enclosures that were poured in molds and like handcrafted. It was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost just bought one off Reverb because like I kind of just want that. I have like 10 Plumes. I don't know if I'm not quite Sam, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that's they are awesome, and like I think a couple other like Benson did like a small run of pedals, and Lawler has some. Lawler and KGR are kind of like a little tied. They don't own each other or anything like that, but there's a guy Mike who works for Lawler and KGR in the U.S. Really cool people, but that's kind of how like they like the KGR is interested in working at this foundry, but also builds pedals. So his little like KGR shop is like above where they're like smelting metal for these like, you know, they mostly make like teapots and stuff like that there. I don't know, it was super cool. And just the way they do it is like really old school. Like there's definitely more modern ways to do it, but they're like sand casting, and like there's one guy who can pour the metal because he just knows by feeling and sight, like this is when it's ready to be poured, this is how much you put in that mold, and you're just done. And if you're watching it happen, which you can watch the video on our YouTube, they're moving in a way where like you're like, you are gonna pour molten metal all over each other at any say, but they're not. Like they're perfect, like they know exactly what they're doing. It's crazy. It's also a thing that like, I don't know. It's just like, it's so cool to watch something that has been done exactly the same way for like hundreds and hundreds of years, and no one has gone in and like fucked with that process and like imposed all these rules and weird shit on it where like it has to be done cheaper or safer. Yeah, there's something that I really find appealing about like just stuff that doesn't change. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, the Plumes has been a huge hit for you guys. I feel like the Plumes is like the pedal. It's cool to see you do versions like the colorways and then something like that. Even it's just
Yeah, I did think that people would like it because I thought that it was a really good sounding circuit myself, and I know people are wild about the Tube Screamer.
you need one more always.
Yeah, yeah.
It always needs one more Tube Screamer.
It's kind of an interesting thing. Like you see that all the time. Like people are like, "Oh, great, another Tube Screamer. When are people going to make more stuff?" I will tell you that like that's what people actually buy. Like you can make the coolest, weirdest thing, and people are going to be hyper skeptical of it, and like secretly be buying like another Tube Screamer. That just seems to be how things work with people. But like I'm like reluctant to say this because I'm not bragging when I say this. I just think it's like some indicator of this. Like we have 70,000 of them, something.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe well over 70,000 of these pedals.
I think you
And
guys
that's
are the most popular one.
fucking crazy. That is wild for like the pedal world, especially like us making them by hand. And we've never had success like that. And, I'm sure it's a combination of the price point and like the way it sounds and everything. But like, it shocked me, and like I'm beyond thrilled with the response to that pedal. It's just wild to me that it's like on a pedal that is based on the Tube Screamer, which, I half jokingly will say like I don't like that pedal all the time, but it's not a pedal that I had like a ton of experience with. It's just a pedal that like people would come to us at like the NAMM show or like any event that we did and be like, which one's your Tube Screamer? Because everyone's got one. And we didn't have one. So it was like, that's how the whole thing even started. It wasn't like I was like diehard about it, but yeah, something about it clicked with people. And we're definitely very like fortunate because of that. I don't know if it's like a repeatable thing, but it's just funny to me that it's with an overdrive pedal. But I think that most pedal companies would probably say the same thing. Their most popular pedal is gonna be an overdrive.
Mine's a cat synthesizer, so it's probably.
Yeah, you're the outlier, so you're like killing it. That.
Yeah.
You have plans to keep the legacy reissue things going?
Yeah, like that has been like pretty interesting. I think like people seem.
Any requests?
Postmaster.
Put another check next to the
Put another check next to the Fuzzmaster. Whatever you do, may or may not come out on Earthquaker Day or something. But yeah, that was the thing that like I didn't know what people would think of that, but it seems to. It's a fun thing to do for sure, because like of course I like every pedal that we've ever made, but like some things just run their course, or people just weren't that interested when they were around, and like second try.
Well, I was kind of a late bloomer, and my brother had the original. He uses the most different tastes.
Ah,
So when I saw that it was coming out, I missed it.
The first-
I didn't get a second.
that's honestly a thing that like I never have really like put in. Like, of course, there's probably people who had no idea that they existed. Yeah, thanks. But yeah, we'll probably do a few more of those. Yeah.
Then another question. I have a gray shin. And I always like to take the back off.
Mhm.
I noticed there's a dirt bike. You know what that?
There was like one short period of time where I was like, I'm just gonna fill up all the blank space on circuit boards with artwork. So I put somebody like a guy riding the dirt bike on it. Sometimes I'm also like, I feel like maybe I'm losing my mind where I'm like, oh, it's going to be cool. Like he's jumping over the caps and then it doesn't.
Well, I think it's good, so you connected with me.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for also, you're the first person who has ever mentioned that and I appreciate it. There's an early version of the Rainbow Machine that has a cloud with a bunch of fake traces running to fake parts on the board. No one's ever mentioned it.
It's funny you mentioned that. I brought the backside of my gray channel and you drew. It looks like kind of like a farmscape with a.
Oh, you got one of the pedal doodle ones.
What do you look at?
Yeah, take out there.
It's Sam. It's a cat waving.
It's a cat waving. Oh, nice.
Ears.
Yeah, that looked like a silo to me.
I can see how you it looks like houses on an earth and like a fire, but it's a little cat waving at Sam. So she'll draw on the back plates on just like random pedals, and some will be like really elaborate, and some will be like quick drawings like that, but not all of them though.
That's another earth figurative activity. You could like,
How many would you do?
a lot.
I don't know.
It's like random.
I mean, random, it depends on if they have time or not, or like, anything that's like a cool number, you know, would get a doodle, or, yeah, it's pretty random. There was a couple times, or like our 20-year anniversary, those all had doodles.
Yeah. Some of them were like really elaborate doodles.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Guys.